Like now Islam is the one that has to be challenged and questioned, because here is virtue, here is what's common sense, here is what's good and bad, and Islam now has to kind of prove itself. Do you get what I'm trying to indicate here? That we are consumed by our reality, and then Islam has to kind of like figure out its way in that space. So people find it so natural. Well, how come Islam says this? And how come Islam says that? And why is Islam doing this? And why is Islam doing that? Questions that may not be so natural to your parents. Questions that may not come so naturally to Sheikh Sa'id or other mashayikh, ulama, etc. But they come very naturally to you. Now, is it that your brains are better or worse than their brains? No. Just that you have a particular programming. Like, you have to understand, our world that we're living in right now is a profoundly secularized world. You know what secularized means? Means that God, wal-'iyadhu billah, is removed from the practical application of life. People 150 years ago, and there's a genesis to this stuff, because of the Catholic Church and Catholic dominion over the West, there was a revolt against religion, against the Catholics, right? Which made it where now, as a civilization, as a modern Western advanced civilization, the Catholic Church has failed us so dismally. Now we have to go into a place of post-religion. We have to secularize ourselves. We have to dismiss the project of religion, the project of God, from the social sphere, because that is clearly a failed endeavor. Now we need enlightenment. They use very convenient words. Now we have to become enlightened. Do you know what becoming enlightened looks like? Eliminate God. Eliminate religion, right? Because these are antiquated, faulty concepts, faulty ideas. We need to become enlightened. Enlightened, what does enlightenment looks like? What is it? Well, everyone believes in something. So when you remove God, right? When you transition from a theocentric, I'm going to give you some terms that I hope are useful for you as you're progressing in life. Theocentric means God is at the center. When you move from a theocentric, or you deny the existence of a theocentric, what do you think you transition into? What do you think? You go from theocentric to? Self-centered. Yes, perfect. Egocentric. Meaning that now God is not the center of existence. Who is? You are. So now I'm the ilah. My feelings, my perspectives, my subjectivities, they govern, they dictate virtue. I don't like this. This doesn't feel right. Or I feel this way. Feels good. So this must be good. And then God becomes the problem, because I have all these feelings. Well, I'm a God. It's God versus God now. Wal-'iyadhu billah. Right? Because we have made ourselves as modern people, modern, enlightened, sophisticated people, all we've effectively done is we made ourselves the center of existence. That's why you hear things like your body is your temple, right? You hear that in the poem, your body is your temple. You're a goddess. You have Charlemagne the God, right? Kanye thinks he's Jesus, right? Jesus. You're familiar with this stuff, no? Yeah. And that's what you tell yourself, to that you are this goddess, you are this God. Your feelings must be validated. Your perspectives must be validated. It's become so exaggerated that every women desire becomes a substantial women desire. It's not just a feeling, it's a truth. That's why, what do you hear today? This is my truth. You have your truth, I have my truth. So there are many truths. So no one is in the position to judge objectively right, wrong, good, bad. No. We're all gods, and we all have our independent truths, and therefore we define and dictate. This is all a very deliberate 150 to 250 year philosophical project that has brought the modern world into what it is. Because there are governing philosophies, there are governing ideas. Fundamental amongst them is the removal of God from the equation. Because when you have a God in your purview, It's a huge stumbling block. Like if you want to center yourself, center your interests, your motives, remove God. It just makes everything easier. That's why a lot of people, they'll come. No one likes to live in something called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is when you have two cognates, two ideas at odds in your mind, right? Like religion, religious, halal, etc., haram. Like I have these ideas, but then I have like these desires, these impulses, these wants, these social pressures, these very strong social impulses. So, and they contradict. Well, the nature of the human mind is it doesn't like dissonance, doesn't like discomfort. So something has to give. So what happens when all of society has validated validated, affirmed, and celebrates one set of the cognate, like one angle of the ideas, and the whole society contradicts and also what? Antagonizes and demonizes your other side. It becomes a battle, like an internal battle. And people decide like, okay, like, do I hold on to these ideas? Or do I just kind of surrender and submit? And so before we get into details of like misconceptions, and I want to hear whatever questions you guys have, it is so critical that you understand the world that you live in. What is the worldview of modern society? It is the most integral thing to understand before you get into the details of your misconceptions, because your misconceptions may very well be a function of an alternate worldview. Like people have, like I'll give you an example. People today, we claim to be in the age of science, the age of the intellect, the age of reason. People like to claim for themselves that they're very rational. Oh, I don't believe in religion. Guys, don't worry about yourselves. You're all very beautiful and cute and pretty. Just focus on me, okay? Don't, guys, there's too much distraction over there. They're impressed by themselves. Come back to me. Come back to me. What I'm saying requires focus because it's heavy stuff. We live in an age that is, from a philosophical perspective, called the age of scientism, where science. What is science? When you think of science, what is science? What do you use science to do? Prove things, explore things, discover things, right? You're looking out there to like synthesize and process. There's something called the material world. There are oceans, there are skies, there are solar systems, there are organisms, and you use science to what? To explore and discover the material realm, the created world, no matter how far high it is or how low it is or how vast it is horizontally. That's what science does. Science as a tool is very productive, a very meaningful tool to have. So people become scientists because they become equipped with tools to discover something about what is created, correct? What they see. And the projects of scientists today, no matter how much they've discovered, they've only discovered what? How little they know, correct? Like if you exhaust every scientific department across the world, from east to west, in every language, how much have these thousands of scientists actually discovered? Minuscule, right? Infinitesimal, very small. Every time they discover a planet or a solar system, they realize what? Holy moly, there's like solar systems that really beyond conception how vast it is. So a part of the project of secularism was, well, we need like a system that discovers truth for us, because now God is no longer the one who defines truth. We're the center of existence. We define truth. So what do we use to discover things? We use science. So that's why what's the most common thing that you hear from east to west, you'll hear people on TV in Egypt saying this, you'll hear people here in the West saying this. Well, they'll say, well, we are scientific people, we're logical people. We don't just believe in fairy tales and, kalam fadi. So we take the scientific approach. And when you employ the scientific approach to reality as a whole, then the only thing that becomes real is that which you can touch and see. That's the only thing that's real. The only thing that you can empirically deduce, like 1 + 1 = 2. That you can touch, for example, an organism, dissect it, and see, protons and neutrons and atoms and things of that nature. That, by the way, is for most modern people the extent of truth. The extent of reality is what I, as a human being, can touch, feel, experience, synthesize, and deduce. Throughout human history, that was never the case. By the way, Muslim philosophers, non-Muslim philosophers, Eastern philosophers, Western philosophers have always said that reality extends far beyond what is material. In the modern world, that's not the case. So when you grow up in a reality where you are told the only thing that is truth, that is logical, that is rational, is that what you can touch, then what happens to your belief in angels? What happens to your belief in God? What happens to your belief in the afterlife? It becomes what? Highly skeptical. I can't touch. I'm the center of existence, and I can't touch it. Therefore, it does not exist. That is one of the most deluded, narcissistic modern concepts. That your purview, you can barely, as a human being, control your bowel movements. Barely control them. You have to urinate, guess what happens? You become like a little kid, twinkling on your toes. I have to go to the bathroom. How can someone so fickle, so limited in their scope of anything, like, let me ask you a question. By the time any of you die, what will you actually know about just the physical realm? Forget about the unseen. For just the physical, how much of the physical realm would you actually have known? You can say, I know this. What % of it? I'm telling you, it's so statistically insignificant, it's a 0. What can be known just in the material realm versus not just you as a one individual, all of us as human beings. The whatever billion, how many people on earth today? 7-8 billion. The 7-8 billion people that exist on this earth today, when our collective 7-8 billion die, how much will all of us know about reality? Collectively, still very, very, very little. How can a human being who objectively knows close to nothing, if not nothing, sit there and become the judge, the jury, and the arbiter of truth? It's objectively a stupid idea, with all due respect. I don't mean to say harsh words. It's an objectively a dumb idea. Is that better? Is dumb better than عشان بس maintain the sensibilities? No, it is. It's objectively a dumb idea. You've decided that's why. See, historical philosophers, and Sheikh Saeed will tell you about this, when you read the Falasif al-Qudama, they were far more sophisticated because their perception of reality was so much more representative of reality, of truth. Like if I asked you 150 years ago, what's your name? You, Muhammad. Let's say you're a person who existed 150 years ago, okay? 200 years ago. You're on your horse, okay? You're riding through the savannah, and then I tell you, and I bump into you, I say, Muhammad, by the way, you know what, 200 years from now, elephants, they'll be able to fly across continents. 200 years ago, you'd be like, you psychopath, get out of here. You're crazy. What are you talking about? You'd be talking about how can an elephant, in any imaginative way, possibly do that? So you'll probably, 200 years ago, you'll say, it's inconceivable. How can that be? How can that happen? Do elephants travel cross continents today, every single day? From zoo to zoo? And yeah. We have all sorts of mechanisms, tools, capacities, abilities, through science, to accomplish things that 200 years ago, 100 years ago, would be inconceivable. The internet itself. was profoundly inconceivable. But you know what you say today? Today you say 200 years ago, it was obviously a possibility. Like, I may not have been able to conceive of it, but it was always within the realm of possible. You know what becomes a possibility according to philosophers? Al-Qudama. Anything that is jaiz aqlan. Amulana, laysa kadhalik. Al-jaiz al-aqli. We have language. There's something called mustahil aqli, something that is intellectually impossible. Like, for example, you know what's something that's intellectually impossible? What's something that's intellectually impossible? I won't answer that. What's something that's intellectually impossible? Huh? That's not intellectually impossible. That's experientially impossible, meaning that you've never experienced it, so therefore it's impossible. But what's intellectually, like logically impossible? That's a logical impossibility. What else is a logical impossibility? Huh? To know everything is a logical impossibility? No, it's not a logical impossibility. It's an experiential impossibility. Meaning, what's your name? Adam. Is it rationally impossible that there is a being that knows everything? No, it's not rationally impossible. So it's conceivable. So it's logically possible. Because in our theology, there's a being that knows everything. He's Allah. Right? What did you say? Someone here said something. What did you say? Is that logically impossible? Did not Allah create many things out of nothing? So it's logically possible. You know what's logically impossible? That 1 + 1 ever equals 3. 1 + 1 will never, ever not equal 2. Like when you have two things, this will always be 2. This will never be 3. So there are things that are genuinely, logically, rationally impossible. You want to know the defining line between what's possible and impossible? Whether you can imagine it or not. Can you imagine this or not? Like right now, can you imagine these two being 3? No, you cannot imagine it. You can't fathom it. Your mind cannot construct it. You can only conceive of this being 2. But there are plenty of things that you've never seen, that you will never see, that you have never conceived of, that are all possibilities. Just like people 200 years ago experientially speaking, could not conceive, but could never rationally deny. You can just say, like, I guess I can imagine it. What? Human beings, we're very imaginative people. We imagine it, like, you watch any sci-fi movies, you watch, like, Lord of the Rings and... What? Which was that? Yeah. Perfect, right? You go up that avenue and you can simulate and create and design and imagine, and people are celebrated for their imagination. Things that, practically speaking, were like, how could this be? How could, these are... But because you can imagine it, it becomes inherently possible. So it becomes jaiz aqlan. It becomes conceptually possible. If something is conceptually possible, then we put it within the frame of reality. We don't put it within the frame of what? Irrationality. So you have atheists today. Like, I'll give you a funny story. One time I was speaking at Harvard Medical School, okay? And I had all these, like, brilliant scientists, young scientists, professors, whatever, sitting in front of me. And I was giving a presentation on Islam. I finished my presentation on Islam, and the first question I get, some young medical school students raise their hand. She goes, what's your opinion on gay marriage? So I looked there, I was like, I just gave a 1-hour-long presentation about one of the greatest, if not the greatest, world religion. that spans 1400 years. We have a civilizational output that is objectively unparalleled in so many ways. We have an intellectual output that is profound. We have scholars that number in the millions, books that number in the hundreds of millions. We are a rich civilization. This is the only question that you could generate after my talk? I was like, why don't you, you're supposed to be objective. Try to learn something. I'm not saying like, be a Muslim, but just try to at least give my presentation a chance. Don't be so simple-minded that you can only process one gotcha question. I was like, I can answer your question. Trust me, you can cancel me all night and all day. I don't care about being canceled. I don't care about being shamed. You can't threaten me or intimidate me. I'll share everything that I believe. But I told her, before I answer your question, I want to tell you something. And I want to tell me what you think about what I'm telling you. I am a person, okay, this person who's sitting in front of you, I believe that my prophet, he rode on a magical beast called the Buraq, and he went on a sacred night journey, which our commemoration of it is when? This weekend, which is called Al-Isra wal-Mi'raj. I believe that my prophet rode this beast called the Buraq. He went from, where did he go from? Mecca to Al-Quds, not Mecca to Medina. That was the Hijrah. ماشي يا عم صعبت المدينة جميل. He made a detour. Mecca. Don't worry, that's on Saturdays. He does on Saturdays. You go to your shit on Saturday. So he went from Mecca to Al-Quds, and then from Al-Quds where? Sidrat al-Muntaha, and thereafter, correct? So I told her, I believe that my prophet did this, and I believe he did this in the span of a night, in less than a night, therefore, on this magical. I believe this. I told her, let me tell you how much I believe that he did this. I believe that he did that more than I believe that I'm looking at you. Yeah, scratch your head, exactly. No, it makes a lot of sense. You just don't understand yet. It makes no sense to you. It makes a lot of sense to me. I told her, I believe in that occurrence, in that miraculous night journey, that sacred night journey, more than I believe that I see you. I'm introducing this into the concept. She didn't introduce this idea. I am presenting it. I was like, let me ask you a question. What do you think of me? She giggled. She's like, I was like, be honest, tell me. You think I'm stupid? Do you think I'm nonsensical? Do you think I believe in fairy tales? She's like, honestly, yes. I was like, okay, that's fine, great. I fully surrender that right of you to think of me what you think about me. However, I don't believe for a second that you thinking that I believe in fairy tales or nonsensical means that you hate me or that you somehow want to kill me or harm me. You just want to believe that you completely believe in something other than what I believe in. I say you have the full right to do so. Are you going to give me the same right when the tables are turned? You have a perspective. I believe in a perspective that may be in contradistinction to what you believe in. Does that mean that you and I have to be enemies of one another? No. So that was just my kind of the intro. I did go on to explain to her why I believe the way I do. Because I told her, see, your conception of reality is very limited. You conceive of reality through a very limited self-centered prism. Basically, as soon as it hits your mind, if it doesn't, مش راكبة, as Egyptians would say, like if it's not coming together, I reject it. That was never the disposition of the people of the past. People of the past were far more humble. Far more humble. We are the most arrogant people in human history. We're so profoundly arrogant. We are so narcissistic. We truly believe that we are the epitome of human existence. We do. As modern people, we look at ourselves, look at Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, the guy from Virgin Atlantic, what's his name with the hair? Whatever his name is, Branson. What are all these guys, these billionaires doing? Do you know the two top investments of all these billionaires? What do you think they're investing their money in? Have you looked into this? Yachts. No, that's just on the side. You said it. One of them is space travel, because now we have to expand our reach. We have to go beyond. We have to settle other planets. It's like, it's like the worst of Greek tragedies. If you're familiar with Greek tragedies, it's the epitome of a Greek tragedy. You're like shooting for the stars, like, and they're going to get burned by the stars. Or they're going to keep on in their delusional state, take their hundreds of billions of dollars, invest it into their delusions of grandeur. We're going to occupy now not just Earth, but beyond. The second investment is in what? What do you think the second? No. They can generate money in endless ways now. You have $200 billion, you have $300 billion. Trust me, you can multiply that in many ways. What's their second investment? Barakallahu feek. These two guys got number 1 and 2. Their second investment is what? Is how to elongate their lives. So it's all about how much more they can possess and for how long they can do it. They just want to figure out how to be even greater gods in their own warped reality. It's a delusion of grandeur that's profound, that I think far extends beyond the Fir'aunic reality, like Fir'aun of the past. Yeah, he was أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى here, right? He would go tell, like, give me a sullam so I can climb and see your Rabb. And like, these guys are like, no, ma'aya sullam. Which like Fir'aun, he was like, bring me a ladder that I can go up and see your Lord, right? These guys are like, no, I don't need a ladder. I have a space shuttle. I'm going to go up and look by myself. He's going to go up and get burned by the stars. This is the reality, right? Because the jinn did the same thing. The jinn yastariquna sam'a, and Allah burned them. If we had any humility as human beings, we'd realize, like I said earlier, that we can barely control our bowel movements. That when I am clearly, evidently, I have no true say about my coming into existence, going out of existence, I can clearly barely make it on a long trip, like to, for example, the other coast, let alone go into the galaxies. I have to humble myself. All that I'm saying is the following. Very often, our misconceptions are rooted in faulty conceptions. I have a faulty conception of self, and I have a faulty conception of reality. And so, yes, the more I am immersed in an episteme, this is a word it's a complicated word, but it's a word that represents ideas that dominate. So we said we live in a secular episteme, right? We live in a scientific episteme. So it's the distinction between science as a good tool that's used to discover and scientism. Scientism is a religion. It basically says that science gives me the extent of what can be known. So if it cannot be scientifically proven, then it is what? False. My philosophical orientation rejects that categorically. I am far more in line with people like Aristotle, who's a kafir Western philosopher of the past, who did not have those limitations. That limitation, that common sense, because now, what does someone tell you? That makes no sense. You said it a minute ago. That makes no sense. So we have an idea of common sense. Common sense as an idea is actually 250 years old. There's a philosopher by the name of before Thomas Paine, John Stuart Mill. He said there's common sense logic, right? Common sense logic is you experiencing that which is around you, right? And if it does not make sense, then it lacks sense. It's not common sense. So modern day common sense is governed by what? Governed by science. So science gives you the limits, the boundaries of what is. My philosophical orientation rejects that wholesale. No, science does not give me the boundaries. Science is a tool to be used to discover that which is far more vast than all of us put together, which is just the material realm. But it certainly does not dictate what I perceive of the material realm, and let alone certainly does not dictate what I perceive or understand about the immaterial realm. The realm of each and every single one of you have feelings. have emotions, have perspectives. Each of you have a drive. Why do you think people are addicted to drugs? Right? Why don't you scientifically dissect that bad boy? Right? It's very hard. No, it's a far more emotional, nebulous thing. Something within. There's something within me. It's called the apparatus of feeling and knowing. Your heart, your mind, your nafs. Right? There's this thing within you. Your soul. There's these like impulses, desires, wants, experiences. Right? When you feel a void within you, you feel like you're empty on the inside. Show me how science dissects that. Take it into the ma'mal, take it into the laboratory and use your little scalpel and dissect that one. Can't. It's very limited. That's why most of these atheistic scientists, what do they end up saying? Morality is kind of what we all agree upon is moral. Like it's clearly moral to do X and it's clearly immoral to do Y. No, it's not clear. It's all subjective. Things that were so profoundly immoral just 20, 30 years in this country are now what? More than moral. Like transgenderism was it was like, what are you talking about? What are you doing? I mean, alter your body and do surgeries and shift and remove and replace and place and matching and change genders and alter pronouns and he's and she's and there's no more male, there's no more female. So let me just get this straight. For literally thousands of years of human existence, there's been a male and a female. إحنا النهاردة, today in 2020, we've suddenly discovered a truth that never existed before. Now there's no gender. You can be either at any point. What kind of narcissists are we? We're going to really sit here. An idea that was generated in, in a few years suddenly becomes the absolute truth. If you go into your university and you challenge this notion, what you become tagged as? A bigot. You're intolerant. Correct? You're a bigoted, intolerant person. It's like, oh, hold on, can we be a little scientific here? I want to advocate for science for a second. How can this be so profoundly evident when if you ask someone what is a woman, like if you ask people who are advocates and activists in the transgenderism space, you guys say, what is a woman? Do you know what the technical response to that question in that space is? A woman is what you feel it is. Yes, I know. That's the epitome of science. That's your science. That's your benchmark. A woman is what you feel it is. Really? That's truth? That's why there's a philosopher at Princeton. His name is Charles Taylor. He says, if 100 years ago or 150 years ago, we were in the age of enlightenment, the age of reason. Today, in the 21st century, he says we are in the age of feelings. Philosophers 100 and 200 years ago, they used to say, I think, therefore I am. Like the essence of their existence was that they think. So now that's a problematic concept for us from a theological perspective. No, I am because God willed my existence. Like that's my theology. My aqidah is not that I think, therefore I am. No, I exist because Allah willed my existence. But 150 years ago, it was I think, because for them, the mind was the epitome of. That's why they were far more intelligent than we are today. So I think was far more intellectual. Today, it's I feel, therefore I am. That's why what's every active group in the social sphere advocating for? These are my feelings. What do you have to do? Muhammad, you have to validate my feelings. And who are you to tell me I can't have these feelings? They're my feelings. So how do you negotiate all the other disastrous potential orientations that a person can be? Okay, tomorrow I feel like I want to start, I want to bring a donkey and take it to the civil court, and it's my feeling. And you can validate my feelings, right? I view that this donkey identifies as a 35-year-old woman, and I want to. Is it about identifying? No, I'm not. By the way, I'm not I'm 100% serious. I'm trying to scientifically synthesize. What are we talking about? Just so I understand. If there is no longer an objective truth, if you're literally denying the reality of male, female, then there is no truth. That's a part of the secular, liberal, humanistic episteme and project. Is there is no capital T truth. Yani, Allahu al-Haq. Allah is the truth. So we as Muslims, we believe that there is an essential capital T truth. Allahu al-Haq. And Allah conveys the Haq. And Allah illustrates the Haq. Allah shows the Haq. He is the ultimate arbiter of Haq, of truth. When Allah says dhakar wa untha, it's very descriptive and explicit. And He speaks about the germination of the fetus and how it grows in that reality. And that women are doing this and men are doing that. There is very clear delineated truths that Allah is the one who essentializes. But in the realm where you eliminate God, then khalas, it's your will against my will. That's all it is. It becomes a battle of wills. Your truth versus my truth. Guess what happens to a society where there is no arbiter of truth and everyone is carrying the truth in their pocket? Warfare. Warfare. Pure warfare. You think as a civilization we're ever gonna, you think we're gonna go beyond this stage in any direction other than south? We are struggling as a society. Partisanship is at an all-time high. People hate themselves and hate others more than any time. Al-Jahiliyatul Ula, Qabaliyya, the thing that the Prophet ﷺ came to liberate humanity from, we're well entrenched in Qabaliyya today. It's my tribe versus your tribe. What are the Republicans and the Democrats except, Al-Aws wal-Khazraj? Two Qaba'il of the past that are just at warfare. They literally turned something like COVID into a tribal debate. No, they don't care about people. They don't care for humanity, life. No. My tribe first. My qabila first. We are far more tribalistic than the Arab that the Prophet ﷺ brought into Islam. Because our arrogance today is well beyond the arrogance of the Arab. We can sit there and mock the Arab of the past. Wallahi, we are, as a people, we are far more self-centered, far more deluded than ever was in the past. That's why you can't talk about misconceptions without developing a perspective on all of this. Because there's a principle that governs so many parts of our Islamic intellectual heritage. Al-hukmu ala shay' far'un an tasawwurihi. For you to judge something, you have to have a perspective of what is. And if you've never seen this thing, let's say this thing, how old are you, Muhammad? 25. MashaAllah. You married? We're going to get you there soon, inshallah. Let's say Muhammad, 25 years of existence, he sees me taking this thing, right? And let's say I had a stack of papers right here, and I put this on top of my papers every time. Because you see that method, there's a wind, there's a blow, the window's open, there's a fan. So every time there's a stack of windows, I go and I take and I put this here. Then I come to it and say, Muhammad, what is this thing? Muhammad go, oh, that's a paperweight. I clearly every time Sheikh Yaser had a stack of papers, he put this on top of it. Now, in your 25 years of experience, this is the only way you've seen this thing used. This is the only way you conceived of it. Would your perspective on this be true or false? Okay, your perspective because it's yours? Okay, so your experiential perspective would be true. That yes, 25 years, seeing this on top of that, makes it that this is a paperweight. Now, does your hukum, your ruling on this, does it assess the reality of this? No, not even close. Meaning you are far off the mark. Because you've only conceived of this thing based on your what? Your subjective perspective. Subjectively, I've perceived this as X for 25 years. But one of the greatest fitan is what? أَعْدَى عَدُوَّكَ النَّفْسُ الَّذِي بَيْنَ جَنْبَيْكَ. Your worst enemy is you, the self within you. Because if I walk around, it's like, Wallahi, this is a paperweight. Wahayat Rabbina, this is a paperweight. Anyone who says anything other than this being a paperweight is stupid, is nonsensical, is illogical, it's irrational. I know what this is. This is a paperweight. Who's objectively the dumb one? Of course, not Muhammad. Just someone else on the left. On the left of Muhammad, that pole. No, objectively, in this category, the reality of this is something that does not affirm with what you perceive. If we had any humility as human beings, we would walk far gently on this earth. Because my claim is far more in line with reality. Reality is that we have a perception. We think we know things. And the reality is we don't know. That's why we have statements like Imam al-Shafi'i. He says, كُلَّمَا ازْدَدْتُ عِلْمًا ازْدَدْتُ عِلْمًا بِجَهْلِي. The more I increase in knowledge, the more I increase in the knowledge of my ignorance. We are people, we don't read anymore. We're not actually that learned. Forget about that you're able to get through getting a degree and become, we're not learned people. We're not very sophisticated thinkers. Like people were far more learned. Like when people learned, yes, people are more literate today. Like far more people today can read. But how many people actually read? Most people consume knowledge and information today in sound bites, like small YouTube clips. You're on WhatsApp, that's how most people get their knowledge. WhatsApp, a YouTube clip, a TikTok thing. Like you will sit there and watch TikTok for 3 hours. Like you're in like a trance. Watch yourself looking at TikTok. Like actually record yourself the next time you're on TikTok. You actually look like you're probably in a trance. Like I was driving the other day in my neighborhood in Montville. I saw a girl in the middle of the street dancing like this. No one's around her. I was like, telling my wife, like, is she possessed? We come by, she has her phone propped up on her mailbox. And guess what she was doing? She was TikToking. She was TikToking. Okay. Just bear with me for a second. Now, from my perspective, I thought something was wrong. Maybe we should intervene, call her parents. Like something must be wrong when someone is like doing this in the middle of the street. Then when I saw the phone, I'm like, okay, she's what? She's TikToking. Khalas, alhamdulillah, mafhooma, right? Like, alhamdulillah, you know, jaa al-haq, you know. But let me ask you a question. Wallahi, if there was any other like race of creatures out there watching us, what would they say about us? What would they say? What are you doing? Like what? Like if there was, you know how we study chimpanzees? You know how we study chimpanzees? Like imagine someone was studying us. What would they say like about this creature randomly standing in the middle of the street? Like, listen, when a chimpanzee is doing some dance, it's like a mating call. Like there's a utility to it. Like, you know, like calling a mate, expressing anger, intimidating enemy, claiming territory. Like there's a utility to it. But when a girl, one second, I'm coming to you right now. When a girl is doing this in front of, or a boy, whatever, but no discrimination here. Boys and girls both do idiotic things in front of TikTok. When that's happening, what's the utility other than what? A view. Just like viralness. Like I know that I'm gonna get 1,000 views on this. I'm gonna get 10,000 views. I'm gonna get 1,000,000 views. It's objectively a meaningless enterprise. There's no utility to it. Other than you're making the TikTok billionaires, what are you making them? Super billionaires, right? But as a civilization, what are we creating? We're creating nonsense. We are, as a civilized, all of this is to indicate, let's not be so impressed with ourselves. Let's be a lot more humble and realize that our trajectory is a very questionable one. And I'm saying this as an American born. Like, I want you to understand, young people, I wasn't born in Sheikh land. Like, there's not this place called Sheikh land where Sheikh Saeed came and plucked me out of it. Like, you know, in the Matrix, like Neo, like, you know, plucked from like some pod, and they like plugged the thing out of my head and like, okay, Sheikh, go be a Sheikh. No, I grew up in the same exact milieu that you did, right? I'm just maybe a little bit older, all right? But I grew up in the same exact reality. You know the only thing that changed? You know the only differentiating factor? I studied our tradition, and I really became dumbfounded by how impressive our religion is. And I'm not just saying this, you can say, okay, well, he has a bias, he's a sheikh, right? No, let me tell you something. My wife, she has her PhD from Harvard. I teach at Harvard Divinity School, okay? Harvard is what? What is Harvard? A very elite, impressive, sophisticated, like you have Harvard on your credentials. You know, you walk around a little differently, correct? All right. I don't walk around very differently. I'm not impressed by Harvard. Jazakallah khair. I'm underwhelmed by Harvard. I'm surprised they haven't fired me yet. Because I say this in class. I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed when in Harvard Divinity School, there is nothing divine. There's nothing about the divine. Like you have literally, it's called Harvard Divinity School. There's nothing, they literally proactively work on eliminating the divine. It's a project of bringing Christianity, Islam, Judaism into one space to neuter it, like a cat. And just say, khalas, you're like a culture. Oh, you're cute. Islam is cute. It's like a culture. Like Muhammad, you know what Islam becomes? That you eat atayif in Ramadan. That's Islam. It's a cute thing that you do. It's like, it has no essence to it. It's just like a cuisine. Islam is a cuisine. Some biryani, mansaf. Well, it's, you know, on this, we have Muslims that are from the subcontinent. Sallu ala Nabi. I'm going to give to حاجة غريبة. 70% of the masajid you walk in, you're going to have biryani. But like, you know, it's biryani, it's sweets, it's kunafa, it's gulab jamins, it's like something in that. No, Islam. So my wife's advisor, he is a very brilliant man, Professor Emeritus, and I have a lot of respect for him. Professor Baba Johansson. This is a man, I think he's probably in his late 80s, early 90s. This is a wonderful man, brilliant man. Someone who's in his 90s, who is a proper academic. He's a professor emeritus at Harvard University. It's not easy to get to that status within that paradigm. You know what this man has made his entire career on? This is a very distinguished career, right? You know what his career is fully built on? It's built on studying one aspect of the Hanafi madhab. You know what the Hanafi madhab is? No. Okay? That's a reality. And inshallah with Sheikh Usama in September, you'll learn something about fiqh. The Hanafi madhab is one of our 4 principal legal schools. When it comes to legal matters, like marriage, marital law, custody law, transactional law, all things that are legal, do's, don'ts, how do you do, that's called, this is our legal theory, just like you have a legal canon in the US, right, that spans what, 253, whatever, however, how many hundred years? We have a legal canon that spans 1400 years. It's extremely rich and robust to the extent that a professor at Harvard University will develop his entire career on studying one aspect of one of our legal schools, which is al-mu'amalat. That's all he is. Like when his name is mentioned in academia, and you want to know something about fiqh al-mu'amalat and al-ahnaf, you go to this man. Do you think that Princeton, Harvard, NYU, Stanford, University of Chicago, Oxford, Cambridge, Sorbonne, all of these universities across the world. Do you think they study Islam because they have nothing better to do? Why do these most, you know how big Harvard's endowment is? It's $47 billion endowment. They spend, Princeton has the second biggest endowment, something like 30 billion. They spend millions and millions and millions of dollars studying our intellectual heritage. Do you know why they spend that money? Because our heritage is extremely profound. That's why they study it. Because they are dumbfounded by how profound it is. They can't believe it. Yani, I'm telling you, Professor Emeritus at Harvard University, so when you're thinking about academics internationally, this is someone who's what? Who's like the cream of the crop of an intellectual. I can bring you a student of ilm from Al-Azhar who has more knowledge than this man in Hanafi law. Not just in fiqh al-mu'amalat, but in the whole school. And we sit here and we dismiss the intellectual robustness of where we're coming from. If all of these universities are building their budgets and their academic identity off of studying our religion, what does that say about our religion? That gives you some insight into how rich and profound our religion is. So we shouldn't be so fickle and tantalized because we heard some idea on the internet. Oh, this is immoral. How could Muslims believe in this? And we lose our stuff. No. Islamic beliefs, the Islamic legal theory, the Islamic legal corpus, our philosophical beliefs, our aqidah, our spirituality, our scriptural integrity. No civilization, I'll tell you this, no civilization, no group of people, and I say this objectively, not as some hyperbolic, biased thing. No, I mean this objectively. Prove me wrong, anyone in the world. No one can claim integrity around reports and a synthesis of history like we can. What do I mean by that? When it comes to knowing the reality of the past, no civilization has what we have. We have a science called ilm al-rijal, the science of men and women. Rijal here encompasses both men and women. You know what this science does? This science, in scrupulous detail, analyzes every single transmitter of any report from the past until today. Do you know how many men and women we have an analyzed analysis of who they are, where they were born, where they died, their travel logs throughout life, whether they suffered Alzheimer, إذا خف عقله, right? في آخر وقته, like if his mind became a little dampened, and perhaps he developed some type of Alzheimer. So can you actually accept a report from him? These 650,000 plus names are in our books. We have books preserved. Every single report from the time of the Prophet until today, preserved with scrupulous detail. We grade our reports. We give them grades. We call it Sahih, Hasan Sahih, Hasan Da'if, Mawdu' Makdhub. We have grades. We did this. No others. Give me one civilization that has graded their reports, that has any integrity the way we have. I mean this objectively. Did the Christians do this? Did the Jews do this? Did the Hindus do this? Did the Buddhists do this? Did any of them do it? No. Some people come today, I call them, fahlawa, modern fahlawa. How do you translate fahlawa? I don't know, figure it out. But someone will come and they'll say, we opened up Tabari, right? We found in Tabari, Imam al-Tabari is one of our great scholars, right? We found this report in al-Tabari. Well, this clearly, indicates 1, 2, 3, 4. And sometimes, now, I sit there and I laugh. You know why I laugh? Because, It's as if مثلا هو جاب لي حاجة من تحت الأرض يعني. He got me something like, oh, I had this, by the way, like in my back pocket, and now I'm going to bring it out and show it to you. It's like, ya habibi, we are the ones who gave it to you. يعني our scholars, yeah, Imam al-Tabari كان يجمع. He used to gather reports. We preserved everything, even our faulty fabricated reports. We preserved it all. That because to show you our rigor and our integrity. You know, when we, people say, oh, this hadith is da'if, right? Do you know hadith da'if? First off, it doesn't mean what you should think it means. Hadith da'if does not mean that this hadith is faulty. No, not at all. This hadith, if I'm going to give it a grade, C plus B. C plus B. يعني ممكن تسامحني okay. Sheikh Said allows me to give it. It's a C plus B. Let me ask you a question. You know the history that you go to university? Let's say you go to university, you get a history degree. You open up your history textbook. What is your history textbook telling you? Telling you about the Greeks and the Romans and the Vikings and I don't know what. All this history. What do you think the grade of the reporting is from that time until today? Like singular reports. Like one person reported X, two people reported Y. And we take it like the truth. And we somehow come to our tradition and we say, daif. What are you talking about? It's just that you don't understand. It's just that because you're using my language, you're using my system of rigor and integrity against me nonsensically. No, I'll tell you what's truth and what's not, what this actually means. That's why in so many parts of our Islamic tradition, we use hadith da'if. It's not a weak thing. It's not like faulty. It's not like mawdu'. Mawdu' means it's a lie. It's fabricated. You don't use fabricated reports. But hadith da'if, you definitely use it. In many things. Fada'il al-amal and others. People use it. Fada'il al-amal is like virtuous deeds, but in other things as well. You just don't use it to build theological creedal matters like aqeedah. You don't build your aqeedah through a hadith da'if. But you use hadith da'if even in the science of aqeedah and like some of the extensions of it. All I'm saying, why did I bring you guys to this space? I want you, when you have your misconception, I want you to do a few things. And I'll entertain any misconception you have. You want to talk about gay, trans, atheism, whatever you want to talk about. I really have nothing intimidates me. Put it out there. But before you do that, ask yourself, what cognitive frame are you using to assess everything around you? Are you using a very limited, secular, liberal, scientific, humanistic frame? Or using one that extends far beyond that? Because if you're using that limited frame, at the very least, assert that. Like say, I'm coming from a perspective where reality is only what I can touch and see. I come from a perspective where morality and virtue is what I feel it is. I come from a perspective because you have to know who you are, right? You have to know what you are. You have to know what your brain has become motivated by. The beauty of what Allah has created within us is Allah has created within us the capacity to think and to think about our thoughts and to analyze our thoughts. It's a very profound capacity. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. We have dignified the son of Adam, meaning that Allah He's equipped us with something that no other creation has. We can think and analyze. We can actually contradict ourselves. We can disprove ourselves. We can cognate and metacognate. So we can think and we can think about thoughts. So we have the ability, well, subhanAllah, the language of the Quran really sometimes it mystifies me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لِيُخْرِجَ النَّاسِ مِنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ. To exit people from multitudes of darkness. إِنَّ هَذَا سَبِيلِي فَاتَّبِعُوهُ وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا السُّبُلَ فَتَفَرَّقَ بِكُمْ عَنْ سَبِيلِهِ. Like, Allah says, this is my sabil, this is my path. Because Allah is the truth, huwa al-haq. And He revealed to us al-haqqul mubin, the manifest truth. And He told us, iqra, read. He didn't tell us judge, He says read. Read, study, analyze, discover. When the Prophet ﷺ was told iqra, do you think Jibreel came to him and said, Ya Muhammad, here is Kirkland, yalla iqra, read it. Do you think Jibreel did that to the Prophet? No, he didn't bring him. هو جاب له حاجة مكتوبة يقراها? No. اقرأ. What did the Prophet ﷺ say? He said, ما أنا بقارئ. Yes, you're right. He was fearful. But he said, I cannot read. Now, we all say, هو النبي الأمي. He was illiterate. But you notice, he wasn't told to read the lettered word. He was told, iqra. You know what iqra is? It's a command to read reality. Look, observe, read it all. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Ma ana biqari, I cannot read. Like, I don't know how to read this. It's just so vast. Well, why was the Prophet ﷺ aslan going to Ghar Hira? Why was he going to the cave of Hira in the first place? Why? Because وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى. He was seeking. He was seeking clarity, understanding. He was trying to make sense. Because although socially, like the Prophet ﷺ had everything when he was going to Ghar Hira. He had the best wife. He had the best children. He had amazing businesses. Politically, he was on top because they had just rebuilt the Kaaba, that whole story. Did you go through it? With the Hajar al-Aswad. So his political capital, his social capital was very high. So he had it all. He was like the golden boy of Mecca. But وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا, like we found you needing, seeking. So he was going to the cave of Hira because Prophet was a humble man. He was saying, I can't make sense of this reality. I need clarity. I need understanding. But when he went to Allah and he went into that space and the revelation came. Now, what is revelation? What does revelation literally do? It reveals. It shows you, right? It shows you. Because if all I have my whole life, let's say I take off my glasses and I have this, like I have blinders on like this. What do I see? I could barely. Exactly, I see my hand. I see myself. It's dhulumat. It's all sorts of darkness. Like, I'm just like lost in this darkness. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings revelation. And He shows you, that this is what reality is. This is reality. Allah. Min karamillah. What did He tell Sayyidina Musa? انظر إلى الجبل. Look at the mountain. You'll see my divine reality, presence. You'll see His names, His attributes, manifest and present. Like Allah is not something you have to look for. Allah is manifestly present. Right? So our reading, the command to read is to command to understand, to explore, to realize. See, 3 times the Prophet was told what? Iqra. What did he say 3 times? I can't, I don't know how to. And you said it. It was an intense experience. فَأَخَذَنِي فَضَمَّنِي. Jibreel grabbed me and he, فَأَخَذَنِي فَضَمَّنِي حَتَّى بَلَغَنِي الْجَهْدِ, until I thought I was going to go faint or die. So he submitted physically. He submitted intellectually by saying to Jibreel, I don't know how to fulfill this. لا ما أنا. He negated himself. ما أنا بقارئ. I can't do this. And so he submitted, realized the fullness of his humility, and then Jibreel gave him the key. What was the key? Iqra bismi rabbik. Bismi rabbik. Read bismi rabbik. In the letter ba, Ibn Hisham, he has a book called Mughni al-Labib. It's a book on Arabic grammar. There's 17 meanings for the letter ba. Harf al-ba. Just a profound language. I'm telling you, listen guys, wallahi, I was born and raised here. I didn't come from Sheikh land. I'm telling you, like you know, I love Arabic poetry. All I cared about in the 90s was playing Nintendo. Now I love Arabic poetry. I have no idea how that's the case. Even my own siblings are like, where did you come with all this stuff from? Our tradition is unbelievably profound. Like my confidence is not blind. It's coming from like richness. Because I am dumbfounded by how profound our tradition is. Every aspect of it. Our hadith tradition, our Quranic tradition, our legal tradition, our philosophical tradition, our spiritual tradition, our you know, ulum al-ala, the instrumental sciences, logic, usul al-fiqh, language. There's 13 disciplines just within language. We say like nahu, sarf, balagha. There's 13 more, and then there's furu' of that take it up to 27 and 8 and 30. Just to synthesize the Arabic language. This is a profound tradition. So when the Prophet ﷺ was told to read, the first step to understanding was to say what? Ma ana. Like, ana mean ana. Who am I to read? Like, I don't know how to read. Then he was told, Iqra bismi rabbik. Read in the ba of your Rabb. Now, bismi rabbik means what? In the name of Allah. Needs bisababillah, because of Allah. Means bi'awnillah. You know, these are all meanings and definitions of the letter ba. Bi'awnillah, bisababillah, min ajlillah, bima'iyatillah, bisuhbatillah. Like, billah, and only billah, can you read? Can you see? Can you understand? Other than that, you know what you are in this world? Like this. Just bouncing around in the darkness. And that's why suicide rates are an all-time high. Why do people kill themselves? Because they're what? They're in the depths of darkness. I've spoken to plenty of suicidal people, Muslims and non-Muslims. I know Muslims who killed themselves painfully. Levels of darkness. Every depressed person, what do they say? I'm suffocating like this. I can't breathe anymore. It's so dark. I can't see anything. Mahua, of course, if you go through this world, you know, people like the other day, I was talking to some young people and they were telling me, how come all these like really accomplished people kill themselves? People who have a lot of wealth, people who are very, like, they have a lot of public influence. Why do they kill themselves? You know, people who have far less, like why isn't there any cases of suicide that come out of Gaza? Why isn't there like a rampant suicide rate in Gaza? It's an open air prison, right? Gaza, Palestine, open air prison. I have family from my mother's side. I come from an Egyptian root, but my mother, from her side, we have a Palestinian kind of trajectory. In Gaza, in Khan Yunis, if you guys, any of you know Palestine and Gaza, in Khan Yunis, my mother will be talking to them in small windows because electricity is out like 20 hours. And then they open it up. They're like demons, like playing with the Gazans. Just like, you know, opening, closing, denying, right? Putting on the ma'bar, someone like needing, I have family members who've needed like, you know, kidney replacement stuff sitting on the ma'bar for 2-3 days with the dialysis machine plugged in, right? Okay. Why aren't Gazans killing themselves? Gazans are the happiest people on earth. Wallahi. There's actually studies. Gazans are, statistically speaking, some of the happiest people on earth. They have nothing. They have nothing from this realm. Huh? They have nothing from this realm. They have everything here. You'll see a Ghazan woman. Wallahi, like she just lost her husband and all of her boys, right? And now she has to take on her nieces and nephews by herself, no source of income, taking 20 kids, but sitting there, free, powerful, izzah. Like, wallahi, I watch them and my heart flutters. I'm like, Allahu Akbar, look at this person. You can't shake them. You think she's sitting there saying, oh, I feel. I feel about my feelings. She's not feeling about her feelings. Wallahi, she's not feeling about her feelings. It's we, the privileged ones, who feel about their feelings. أنا فاضي فأي feel. الفاضي يفيل. ما عنديش حاجة أعملها. I'm too privileged. I feel all day. And what happens is, see these women's hearts, ربنا يعزهم والله, and the people of Gaza ويحفظهم and liberate them, Ya Rab. Their hearts are full of Allah. And you know what Allah is? Allah is everything. He's just this ever-present. He is al-haq. He is the truth. He is reality. I don't need anything in my heart. Ibn Taymiyyah, when he was in the prison, in Dimashq, in the depths of that hellhole, you know what he would say? وَلَوْ سَجَنُونِي فَإِنَّ جَنَّتِي فِي صَدْرِي. You can imprison me all you want. My Jannah is right here. مش فارقة معايا. It doesn't make a difference. What happens when you are possessed by this secular, liberal, materialistic paradigm? This dictates. Yani what you see and feel dictates everything. But my life becomes hell. Why? Because I don't have. My life becomes hell. Why? Because I cannot do. I can't do, I can't have, I don't have, so my life is Jahannam. So subhanAllah, when someone, like one of these superstars, whatever, who all they know about reality is the material realm, and then suddenly they have it all one day. And one day, these guys or girls who've been pursuing this their whole life, they suddenly have it all in their hands. They don't have to work a day in their life. They can just buy yachts and figure out how to buy more yachts and bigger yachts. Did you ever ask yourself how many people have looked at videos about yachts and Bugattis and Lamborghinis and mega mansions? Be honest. Come on, all of you raise your hands. Give me more hands. I need more hands in the air. All of us. لا والشباب والكبار. الشباب, both range of the shabab. Let's define shabab as صغير and kabir. Watching it. Suddenly we know about yachts and mega yachts and mega mansions and penthouses and Bugattis and Lamborghinis and whatever. Do you think that that's arbitrary? Do you think that you chose to watch that? You didn't choose to watch it. It was programmed for you to watch it. It's a part of the algorithm, right, of this thing. This algorithm dictates what you're going to watch and see every single day. The algorithm of these apparatus, of social media and other, the algorithm is essentially disposed towards making you possessed with material things. Because when you're in a capitalist, one of the other things I didn't talk about is capitalism. A part of the modern ethic is something called al-Ra'sumaliyya, capitalism. Capitalism is a governing philosophy alongside secularism and liberalism. And I know that you have to dissect these terms further, but it's important for you to have this purview because this is what makes up the way people think. Capitalism, secularism, humanism, liberalism, scientism. What is capitalism all about? What is capitalism at the end of the day? Generation of wealth, right? When you are now the product of a capitalist reality, the only purpose you have is to do two things. To make money, spend money. That's your whole life pursuit. Make money, spend money. Why are you killing yourself to make money? Why do you lose sleep about making money? Why do you agonize about making money? Because you want to do what? Spend money. It's simple. Now, do you think that's a natural idea? No, it's a programming. The algorithm keeps on telling you, yacht, 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 Bugatti, 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 mansion, 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 mansion. Well, that's what, it's a trance. You go into it. It's like, okay, Now I have to go out and earn. I have to make money so I can spend money, so I can buy something I don't need. No one needs a yacht. No one needs a yacht. No one needs a Bugatti. It's a completely nonsensical, idiotic thing to have. Objectively speaking, idiotic to have. How many millions and millions of people are possessed with having these cars? It's a powerful social programming. Like we've all been duped. Like, اللعبة اللي اتلعبت علينا, like this game that has been played with our minds is profound. So it's like, oh, this is what I need. So you have young Muslims who come to me, Sheikh, inshallah, I'm going to become a millionaire because I want to help Islam and Muslimin. Sheikh, how many millionaires do you know? A lot. I know many millionaires. How many of them help Islam and Muslimin? Very little. Because I wanted the money because I want the money. Okay, I come, Sheikh Saeed, ISUC, فاعل خير, $10,000. Allahu Akbar, takbir. And we lose our minds. $25,000, Allahu Akbar, takbir. Right? That's nothing. Oh, nothing. I mean, ربنا يتقبل منه. I'm not dismissing the person's offering. I have... No. Isma, Tariq. I'm not saying that it means nothing. I'm saying it means nothing to that person.
Okay, I see. So that's when you have to take into consideration the self that you're talking about.
I'm talking about the fact that if you live... My point is the following. In the Muslim community, you know how much disposable income we have in our community? You know what disposable income means? Like after you pay your rent and your car payments and all this stuff, you have something called disposable income. You can go and build the extension that you want, or go buy the hairpiece that you want, or whatever it is. You're disposable, right? You know how much disposable income we have in the Muslim community? Take a guess. In the U.S. Muslim community.
Say over $1 billion.
Any other guesses? Disposable income within the American Muslim community. How much do you think we have? 10 billion? Okay, what else? Any other numbers? Any other numbers? $300 billion of disposable income. $300 billion of disposable income in our community. 300 milliard. Okay, for the Arabs in the room. Not million, milliard. 300 billion ziyada. American Muslims. Studies have been pumped out about this stuff, and this is not a number I'm getting from my head, right? Different statistical groups have analyzed. We have 300. You know how much $300 billion is? That's how much Elon Musk has. But do you know how much that means? Do you know what we can do with $300 billion? We can have our own nation. Countries have a GDP that's far smaller than 300 billion. Do you think the Muslim community needs any more money? No. We don't. You know what we need? We need people who can break out of the algorithm, the programming, this obsession with having more and more and more. That's what we need. We need Muslims who get out of themselves and stop worshiping themselves and stop obsessing over themselves. Because that's the status quo. A capitalist society, it needs, what does a capitalist society need? It needs every member of that society earning and producing. That's why a capitalist society is not interested in family. Because family is problematic. Families are problematic to a capitalist society. If I have 5 people, أنا عاوز الخمسة شغالين مش واحد. I want all 5. So now suddenly what happens? Oh, it's my career. My career is my identity. I'm a young man, a young woman. I need to find myself. So I need a career to find myself. Whoever said that your career is going to ever find you, or if you find yourself in your career? Trust me, never. You'll never find yourself in your career. It's just the system of capitalism that has convinced you that your worth is in your job. Do you understand what I'm talking about here?
It's the first thing you tell us that I found fun.
Your family is a distraction. That's why we have nuclearized the family. We have like, well, historically, what do you have? Like my brother-in-law, he's Jordanian. When I go to his family in Jordan, in Irbit, in Gemim, in the inside, you go in, you see Ailt al-Awawda, mashallah, like a nation of people, 70,000 cousins. Half of Patterson, my brother-in-law's cousins. Allahu Akbar. This is my cousin. Allahu Akbar. You see richness, family, and connection and bonds. Wealth. It's رأس مال. ما هو رأس مال. Like when I was in Egypt studying at Al-Azhar, I had classmates who were Africans, right? Who were like from Mali and Ghana and Senegal and stuff. So one of my shuyukh, he was from Mali, Sheikh Ibrahim al-Fulani. His father came from Mali one day for a trip. He comes in and he's like meeting us. This is a man who lives like in the Adghal, like in the villages of the villages in Mali. So he sits with us and he's like, what's your name? How old are you? How many wives do you have? How many children do you have? Everyone's like 1 and 2, 3 kids, 4 kids, 5 kids. And he's like, like he's coming. 37 kids. Right? No, ثلاثة. No, but this is to make a point. Now, no, hold on, bear with me for a second, because everyone's mind's like, لا لا بس إيه ده كتير قوي. طب الفرح يوريني حيربيهم ازاي. That's what we would say. وريني حتربيهم ازاي بقى. Well, we come from a very particular, modernized, civilized orientation. By the way, throughout human history, this was your capital. This was your capital. Ra'su Malik was people, your tribe, your family. How much you have in that regard. Right? Not how many zeros you have in your bank account. How many people you have. That was power. That was influence. That was true value. That's why you had this reality. But today, no. You need a maximum 2 children. Maximum. 2 children and a cat. And if you're a little spicy, a dog. That's what you need. So because what happens then? What does the mother become possessed with? What does the wife? The wife is concerned about what? Her interests and her motivations. The husband, concerned with what? His interest and his motivation. The children, independently, what they want and what they perceive and what they can have. Let me ask you a question. And I know we're supposed, and I'll close right now. Let me ask you a question. Why is it that every single young person wants to get away? Right? This is like a desired pursuit. I'll talk to young people. Sheikh, I just want to get away, just want to get out there and just, find myself and explore and be independent and be free. It's a real pursuit of mine. I want to play the violin when I hear that. So I sit there and listen and to the beautiful story of nothingness. I always tell people, you want to find yourself? Go to the mirror and look in it, you're right there. You don't need to be found, you're right there. By the way, this impulse to get away from your family, it's a very ugly impulse. Very ugly. قبيح جدا. Like for you to imagine yourself independent of your family is one of the most iblisi, one of the most demonic, nefarious concepts and ideas. That I have to be independent.
Why?
You know why? Because you will never survive on your own. Ever. No one in human civilization has survived on their own. You just can't. You can't. الذئب يأكل من الغنم القاسي. The wolf will eat from the lone sheep. Do you know how many young people I know of my age? Okay? I'm in the 40 range. Do you know how many people I know who've accomplished it? 40? You know, they've accomplished it. They've accomplished it. They've gone and gotten their degrees. They left their families. They went to New York City. They lived the romantic, sexy life. You know, everyone imagines themselves walking down Fifth Avenue, independent and free, finding themselves, going to swanky cafes, right? That's what young people think. Oh, I'm just going to be so cool and independent. And guess what settles in very quickly? Depression, anxiety, loneliness, lost, wayward. Never finding themselves, by the way. Do you know how many people I know, sisters in particular, who are in their late 30s, pay attention to what I'm saying, please, who are in their late 30s and they regret wholesale the trajectory of their lives? They regret it. Why did I do this? What am I doing? Okay, I have a really nice apartment. I have a really big income. But what am I doing with it? Like, I'm not sharing it with anyone. I have no one else in my life. I've become estranged from my family because I've been away from them for 10, 15 years. So I'm not really close to them anymore. So I become isolated, alone. في مصر بيقولوا ايه؟ يعني حاجة مش عارف ايه لو ما عندوش يشتري like حاجة زي مش عارف لو اللي ما عندوش صاحب يشتري كذا او اللي ما عندوش كبير يشتري كبير حاجة زي كده مش كده؟ Like if you don't have people, you buy. Like ما عندوش جار يشتري جار. Like if you don't have a neighbor, you go buy one. Because you know why? Because for you to live, Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, he says, there's nothing truly pleasurable about this world except two things. ركيعات في الليل والصحبة الصالحة. It's what boils down. At the end of the day, that this dunya has very little to offer you. But if it's going to offer you something, ibadah and good company. When you have been sold the bill of goods to go out and be independent, why do you think every Disney movie has the same idiotic storyline? Some young kid who's just so bothered by his parents and my mom and my dad, and they're antiquated and they're old school, and they have these ideas, I just have to leave. I have to go to the other side of the ocean. Right? Every Disney movie is about breaking free, living alone. It's all indoctrination. You go, one of the greatest impulses of young people is what? I want the college experience. I want to go live alone on campus. I want a dorm, correct? Okay. I'm telling you right now, the worst possible decision you can make in your life is to go dorm on a university campus. The worst decision. You better have like really no other choice. I am a huge advocate. You go to school, you come home. With all due respect. I know the young people hate me for this. But you know, I'm not saying this arbitrarily. I work on a university campus. Okay? I can't tell you the garbage that I see on these campuses. I can't tell you the sense of... Do you know MIT? MIT is down the block from where Harvard is. I teach many classes at MIT for Muslim students. You know the number one university with regards to suicide is what? MIT. The most kids who kill themselves. Do you know that USC, University of Southern California, it just rebuilt its dormitory a few years ago. They built it for $280 million. Million, not billion, million. Okay? 280 million remodel of their dorms. What I'm going to tell you is going to shock you. Do you know when they rebuilt their dorms, the closets in the dormitories? The closet, like you go into a dorm, there's a closet to hang up the clothes. The rods in the dorm rooms, they're collapsible because they found too many kids hanging themselves in the closets. So they made the rods collapsible. So they made the rods collapsible so that if a kid tries to hang themselves, they can't. Can I ask you a question? Why are kids hanging themselves at school? You're lonely. You're lost. You're not meant to be alone at the age of 17 and 18. You're not. Because what do you know? You barely know how to wipe yourself in the bathroom. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit blunt and you don't have to invite me again. Don't worry. I told you I don't fear being canceled. You don't even have to love me or like me. But wallahi, what I'm telling you is from my heart. I want people to be educated. But I don't want to see any more young Muslims miserable. There's no reason for young Muslims to be so miserable and desperate and riddled with anxiety and depression, living in suffocated realities, feeling lost, feeling like they have nothing and no one. You know, I'm telling you, you want to invest in something? Invest in your families. Invest in your suhbah salihah. Build that from now. You know, get married and have kids and invest in that and have beautiful, robust communities. Ilzam jama'at al-muslimin. This is what the Prophet ﷺ said. When the fitna, when times are really tight, find Muslims and stay with them. وَاصْبِرْ نَفْسَكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ بِالْغَدَاةِ وَالْعَشِيِّ. Find Muslims and stay amongst them. Taslam. You will be secure and safe and well. You're alone, you're susceptible to every disastrous outcome. I'm telling you, you may have every impulse. Some of you are 17, 18. Every impulse, you're just counting the days to get away. I'm telling you, don't think that way. Listen, there's a point in time where you're going to do whatever you want. Parents are going to beg you, plead with you, but you're going to come to a point and do whatever you want. Don't allow yourself to be deluded by this. Iqra. What I'm telling you is read, understand, be humble. وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا. Walk gently. Walk gently, relax. Tarayyaf. You know? Tarayyaf means like calm down. Don't be so quick. Don't be so programmed. Don't be so quick and programmed. Relax. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing when you write off your religion as a viable prospect. I have young people all the time, it's like, I don't even know I should be Muslim anymore. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Why? Why are you saying that? On what grounds are you able to say that? Why are you so confident? You know, girls taking off their hijab like wholesale. Why? Why take off your hijab? Why? What's making you do that? What impulse? What desire? Why are you skeptical about your hadith, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ? Why are you skeptical about the Quran? Why? By the way, it's not because there's no problem there. It's a user error. You know what a user error means? When you're trying to work your iPhone and you go to Best Buy, and what is it called? The Geek Squad? I would say, sir, you just have to like do this. And it was, right? You have to do this, I press this button, and problem solved. It's a user error because we are susceptible to error. That's just our nature because we're ignorant. I'll close with this as the framing, and then inshallah, Sheikh, we'll have a part 2 to this so that we can, if you guys want to get into details, we can. أحد مشايخي في الأزهر, he would say, بص يا ابني لما ترجع أمريكا, I'm going to say this in Arabic, then I'll say it in English. He says, لما ترجع أمريكا, يا ريت بس تنزل الناس من مستوى جهل مركب لجهل بسيط. ده شغلك الشاغل. الجهل المركب تجيبها لجهل بسيط. وكده هتبقى عملت اللي متعملش. What that means is the following. جهل مركب, compounded ignorance, is when you are ignorant of the fact that you are ignorant. When you think you know, right? You're arrogant in your ignorance. انت مش عارف اي حاجه في اي حاجه. بس يعني ديك رومي. You know, I just walk around like a peacock. I know everything. Simple ignorance You know what simple ignorance is? Let me make this distinction for you. Muhammad, if I tell you what's behind this wall, what are you going to say? طيب سيبك من this wall. Let's just say you didn't know what was behind this wall. If I say what's behind this wall, what do you say? I don't know. جميل جدا. I don't know. ده اسمه جهل بسيط. This is called simple ignorance. But if I say Muhammad, what's behind this wall? You say it's a pink elephant. Wallahi. Nothing else. Pink elephant. This is called جهل مركب. Compounded ignorance. So my sheikh was telling me, if there's one thing that you can do to help people is bring them down from the level of compounded ignorance to simple ignorance. جهل مركب, جهل بسيط. Because you can do so much with جهل بسيط. And if I tell you, you say I don't know, then what happens? ممكن تفهم حاجة. يعني if Imam al-Muhasibi, one of the great spiritual scholars of our tradition from the 3rd century, he says, تعلم لا أدري ولا تتعلم أدري. فإن قلت أدري سألوك وجهلوك حتى لا تدري وإن قلت لا أدري علموك حتى تدري. Like he says, learn to say I don't know and don't learn to say I know. Because if you say I know, your ignorance will be exposed clearly. But if you say I don't know, then you will be taught until you learn. In Islam, من قال لا أدري فقد أفتى. That's not just kalam yuqal. Like, la adri is a very powerful statement. ولذلك Imam Malik was Imam al-Dunya in his time, يشار إليه Imam Ahl al-Madinah. When Imam Malik was, when the man from far west, and that time was Morocco, came to him with 40 questions. He said, Ya Imam, I came from my people in this long journey with 40 questions. Out of the 40 questions, you know how many he answered? He answered 4. And 36, he said, La adri, I don't know. This is Imam Imam al-Dunya. He was the scholar of the world in that time. And he answered 36 out of 40, 4 out of 40 questions. All I am saying is be very weary of this capitalistic, secularized, humanistic, liberalized, scientized reality that has made you deluded into thinking that you know everything. من تواضع لله هكذا رفعه الله هكذا. You humble to yourself, Allah this way, Allah will elevate you. اتقوا الله ويعلمكم الله. Be mindful, conscious, and humble with Allah, and Allah He'll show you, He will teach you. You don't have to be in dhulumat your whole life. Like I always tell people, you don't have to be in endless darkness your whole life. People who live there in an endless cycle of darkness, wallahi, the light is right there. You know? It's right there. It's a switch. You turn it on, you see. You don't have to be like, in a dark room going like this looking for the switch. It's just, alhamdulillah. قُلْ آمَنْتُ بِاللَّهِ ثُمَّ اسْتَقِمْ. That's our worldview. Allahu al-Haq. Allah shows us the reality. We submit and we surrender to Allah. We trust in Allah. We defer to Allah. We affirm Allah as Al-Hakim, Al-Alim, Al-Khabir, Al-Sami' Al-Basir, Malikul Mulk. This is what we affirm for the divine, that He is the truly all-knowing, the all-encompassing. He is the only true creator. He is the creator of all things. He is the all-wise. He is the King of Kings. He has dominion over all things. Allah. This is what your Aqidah class should do for you. Teach you about the reality of the divine. All I would ask you is figure out what your true worldview must be. What should be the governing frame of your mind objectively? I'm not asking you to have a leap of faith. Like people, when they look at religionists, they say what? Oh, you just want me to have blind faith. No, I want you to have objective belief. Write that down. The distinction between blind faith and objective belief. I will argue for objective belief. That objectively speaking, the most rational and logical thing that we can do as human beings is surrender to Allah. That is by far the most objectively rational thing we can do. Everything else is like Russian roulette. It's just complete darb of like whim. Allah objectively makes sense. Allah objectively exists. Allah objectively is the truth. Allah objectively is the arbiter of morality. Al-hasanu ma hasanahu Allah wal-qabihu ma qabbahahu Allah. What Allah dictates as hasan and beautiful, that's what's hasan objectively. What Allah decrees as moral, that's what's objectively moral. Not you and I. You're just a program. You've been programmed by the algorithm to suddenly become the #1 LGBTQ activist. How is it that young people in wholesale, Muslims and non-Muslims, are some of the biggest advocates of LGBTQ movement? You think that's arbitrary? You think that's arbitrary? Wallahi, that's not arbitrary. Why is that? Why are you suddenly an advocate for that? And I've sat with plenty of people who have SAA, SSA, same-sex attraction. Ibtila, fitna. Someone has a struggle within them. No, but we have to affirm, we have to validate, we have to problematize now Islam. Islam is the problem because it doesn't facilitate for X. And this is the truth and that's the falsehood. That's why Prophet ﷺ, when he talks about the end of time, what happens? يُكَذَّبُ فِيهِ الصَّادِقُ وَيُصَدَّقُ فِيهِ الْكَاذِبُ. And truth and falsehood will become truth, everything becomes رَأْسًا عَلَى عَقِبٍ, upside down. Truth, falsehood. Falsehood is truth, truth is falsehood. Like a switch. That's why Prophet ﷺ says, there'll come a day, يُصْبِحُ مُؤْمِنًا وَيُمْسِي كَافِرًا. It's a switch. You wake up as a believer, you go to sleep as a disbeliever. So all I'm telling you is, be careful and be thoughtful and calm down. And don't jump to conclusions. And don't think just because you feel something or that you think you know something that it's somehow the truth. Be very humble. Challenge yourself. Challenge yourself more than anyone else can challenge you. Be very inquisitive. By the way, I'm not saying this so you don't come to me with your complicated, or you can come to me, wallahi, with any question you have. But I'm just saying, look at yourself. انظر في نفسك. Look at yourself first. حاسب نفسك أولا. Because what happens is when you put yourself at the center of existence, if it's a self-centered orientation, then where does the muhasaba go? Outwards. فربنا يتحاسب أنا ما اتحاسبش. Like, and I hold Allah accountable, I don't hold myself accountable. I critique Allah, I don't critique myself. I critique Islam, I don't critique myself. But when it's a theocentric orientation, Allah is reality. I critique myself. Two different orientations. So I hope, inshallah, these ideas help you think more critically about the context of the world that you live in, the beliefs and the ideas and the perspectives that have become now definitive in so many people's minds. And inshallah ta'ala, next time, I know it's 9:50, so we're well over time. But inshallah, next time, we'll have, inshallah, one more gathering to go through the Q&A and all the details and the questions that you have and whatever it is, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Barakallahu feekum. I don't know if we should, if people have, it's maybe a little bit late, but khair inshallah. Allah.
Please take your chairs and your tables and fold them, please, before you guys leave.
الله يبارك فيكم. آمين.